Throughout history, virtually every civilization has invented one or more gods to explain that which they didn't understand. Zeus, Odin, Ra, Mithras, Wotan, Hecate, Thor, Anubis, Jupiter, Aphrodite, Apollo, Venus, Ares, Isis, Loki, and hundreds of other gods were worshipped for thousands of years by millions of people. Yet we now dismiss them all as myth. While the belief in a god or gods is ubiquitous, God claims are no more credible than the long-standing and widely held notion of the flat earth. Neither intense devotion nor the fact that millions of people worship a god are indications that that god actually exists. But the fact that there have been so many different and often opposing god concepts throughout our history is evidence that a god does not exist. The ancient Egyptians were so devout in their god beliefs that in honor of them they built some of the most massive and enduring structures in all of human history. But despite their fervent belief, we now know that the Egyptian gods did not exist, and we no longer mummify our dead or build pyramids for our deceased leaders. Millions of Romans worshipped Jupiter, Neptune, Apollo, and their kin. They built grand, ostentatious temples to these gods. Yet today, the ruins of these ancient places of worship are mere tourist attractions. We don't go there to pay homage to the Roman gods, but rather to see the accomplishments of the human race. We know that Neptune, Mars, and Mercury are not gods. They're planets. There's no evidence for the existence of these gods. The Aztecs believed so fervently in their gods that they not only constructed huge temples and pyramids like the Egyptians and Romans, but the Aztecs took their god myths to new depths with the sacrifice of thousands of their fellow human beings. Yet the zealousness of their devotion doesn't prove their god real. It only serves to show us the kind of atrocities justified by religious beliefs. The Abrahamic God myths of today are amalgams of other historical gods in the region. According to the Old Testament, Yahweh is the one God of the Israelites, but historical evidence suggests the Israelites didn't adopt their monotheistic religion until between 538 and 515 BCE, after returning to Jerusalem from their exile in Babylonia. Texts discovered in the ruins of the ancient city of Ugarit cast a different light on the origins of the early Jewish religion. The chief god in the region at the time was El, with his wife Asherah. They were said to have had 70 divine children. Among them were Baal and Yahweh. In this early developmental phase of the Israelite religion, El divided the nations of the earth among his family members, who became the patron deities of the 70 nations. Israel was given to Yahweh. Eventually, the god El became identified with Yahweh, and the result was that Yahweh El was the husband of Asherah. In this form, Yahweh was the divine king, ruling over all the other gods. Then between the 8th and 6th centuries BCE, the other gods were relegated the status of mere expressions of the power of Yahweh, and thus Yahweh became known as the one true God. The Jesus that Christians worship today is an amalgam formed out of ancient pagan gods. The idea of a virgin birth, burial in a rock tomb, resurrection after 3 days, and eating of body and drinking of blood were all pilfered from earlier pagan beliefs. Christianity is a snowball that rolled over a dozen pagan religions, growing with every ritual and belief that stuck to it. It's actually quite impressive the way Emperor Constantine converted the sun-worshipping pagans to Christianity. By fusing pagan symbols, dates, and rituals into the growing Christian tradition, he created a hybrid religion that was acceptable to both parties. In the Dan Brown novel The Da Vinci Code, symbologist Robert Langdon phrased it well when he said, "The vestiges of pagan religion and Christian symbology are undeniable. Egyptian sun discs became the halos of Catholic saints. Pictograms of Isis nursing her miraculously conceived son Horus became the blueprint for our modern images of the Virgin Mary nursing baby Jesus. And virtually all of the elements of the Catholic ritual, the mitre, the altar, the doxology, and communion, the act of God-eating, were taken directly from earlier pagan mystery religions." The pagans, from whom Christianity derived its myths, worshipped gods that were not real, and the Christian God they spawned is equally unreal. As with countless gods before them, Yahweh and Jesus are the imaginary offspring of their imaginary predecessors.